The intertext from Ramesses VI Pinakaf. The introductory text to 1 Hour RVI states that the book is about the writings of the hidden chamber where the soul gods, shadows, and spirits stand. The hidden chamber is the interior 30 BP region of the DNA molecule where the Lambda Prophet resides. The journey begins at the Horn of the West, the gate of the western horizon, which translates to the polar cusp at the Lamporan. The book holds the knowledge of the mysterious powers, the gate, the path of the great God, the powerful, and the annihilated. Seth stands on the riverbank suggesting compliance. The name of 2 of the 9 baboons in the upper register who opened the earth are the heart of the earth and the heart of the earth, suggesting the movement into the ultimate structure of DNA. Of the 9 kneeling gods, there are crocodile-headed. There are 3 are crocodile-headed, 3 are jackal-headed, and 3 are human-headed. The jackal-headed gods are named Lord of the Holy Grail, Opener of the 2 lands, and the one who separates the powerful ones, a reference to CI and Crow competition for genetic control. The 3 human-headed gods are the one whose arm is shiny, visible arm, and the one who praises with his arm, references to the triumphant arm of the lambda genome or crow protein production. The god with the 2 cross crooks is Hen Betty. The name of the field is the water of Ra, suggesting the interior of the phage head and the movement of phage DNA from lambda head into the tail of the host cell absorption and penetration. The occupants of the bark are openers of the way, mine, lady of the barge, the flesh, horse of the praiser, the bull of truth, the watchful one, and she who guides the barge. The text at the end of the first division states that the gates are open for Ra, who travels to the place where Osiris rests to give breath to Osiris, whose arms are hidden, whose forms are hidden. Ra's resting place is the sprouts on the fields of the earth, signifying lithic vegetative replication. Serpent spirits will illumine the darkness for Ra. The text states that Ra rests on the barge of the Capri, and he has taken the heads of Hentabi among those of the field. When Ra reaches the gates of the earth, he commands that the gate be resistant with sealed bolts. Then the deities wail as Ra passes. Thus, the hidden chamber is the heart of Earth, or the interior hydrophobic basis of DNA where the prophet is large on the host chromosome. References to the battle between Seth and Horus, Ci and Crow, with direct statements about the shiny arm and visible arm, suggests the active right arm of phage lambda or the celestial Horus lineage. This is complemented by the statement that Ra will breathe life into the resting Osiris, suggesting the excision of the prophets and lithic pathway, taking the heads of Hentabi, who holds the cross crooks, suggests the chemical reaction related to holiday junction, annealing, and cleavage at the prophet's site, the place where Osiris rests. Text from Seti 1, Budge. The text explains that the sun god passes by in the forms of a ram to make his transformations. The sun god states that his word goes out to the field gods, that he will avenge his rebels' members by destroying that which has been made for it, or their foundation, that is, the DNA base. This idea of destroying writings or removing the scribe is also present in the pyramid and coffin text. The SI text further states that the dead remains in this court. The banks, upper and lower registers of the stream are lined with baboons, gods, and goddesses singing hymns of praises, along with serpents belching fire. The deities line the banks like nucleotides on DNA double strands or frozen ions on magnetic field lines. The text states that Ra is at the entrance of the door of the earth on his way to the secret place of Osiris. The sun god will bring in the day by seizing the grain of the god Hembeti in the secret place. In other words, he will break the bonds of Henbet, so the prophet Osiris will rise. Ra states, "Shut your doors by the boats and stand on the banks of the stream." When the sun god departs the first division, wailing ensues. The name of the field is Ma'ati. The division is called Net Ra. Transduction. Transduction jump-starts the chemical reaction in the duat. The incoming phage lambda sun god shuttles the inserted deceased into the host cell. At the door of Gab, Earth, the recombinant DNA is transferred into the bacteria Earth cell. 2 infections were necessary. Lambda infects the deceased, that what we might call the donor DNA, and lambda with the donor DNA infects the recipient Earth cell. Thus, we have the sun god / deceased union at the North Pole, the polar membrane of the Earth cell, which is then entered or infected by the recombinant DNA, and transduction begins. Once again, the pharaoh suggests the sun god is like a lambda gene vector, with the Earth cell representing a lysogen that will be induced to undergo a productive infection in which the deceased becomes a bioluminescent cosmic species. The polar cuffs, where the magnetic field is null, is almost always dominated by H+. Recall that when field lines reconnect, the 2 families of plasmas from the Earth's magnetosphere and the Sun's magnetosheath mix and are accelerated by the J times B force of the magnetopause. In our Earth cell, plasma exchange now becomes genetic instructional exchange for protein synthesis. In other words, the depolarization of the Earth's cusp is similar to the process which occurs when the cell membranes is at rest and the channel is blocked by a gating portion of the protein. The resting membrane has a positive charge on the outside and a negative charge on the inside, similar to the negative electron movement discussed in the magnetosphere that allows the flux transfer event to move through. When the channel protein senses a change in voltage due to the opening of adjacent pores or depolarization, the gates open, allowing the ions to rush through the channel into the cell. Buckner stated in 1999, investigated ion channel activities in the E. coli outer membrane and found that the presence of the gated ion channels, suggesting that most of the outer membrane pores, such as LAM, are closed at rest and may be openable by physiological stimuli. Remember, the deceased splits open the sky and drives away the storm. Once the membrane is depolarized, the special blocking segment of the pore protein actually shuts the channel, or as Ra states in the text of Hour 1, "Shut your doors by your boats." Wailing and praising as quorum sensing. Bacteria communicate using signaling molecules released in the environment. They also regulate gene expression in response to the increasing cell population density by the phenomenon called quorum sensing, evident in E. coli. Quorum sensing enables a cell to sense the number of bacteria by the accumulation of signaling molecules. Bacteria coordinate this activity during infection of the host for 3 reasons. 1, to adapt to the nutrients availability. 2, to defend against other competitors and microorganisms for the food source. and 3 to escape the immune response of the host. Thus, in the mixed species population of the Earth cell, the Amduat hours resonate with wailing, lamenting, praising, and cheering as the sun god passes, for the infection is spreading, and quorum, sensing cross-talk, or interspecies communication is occurring. As mentioned, the sun god is self-created or self-assembled, and we encounter this self-creation or molecular assembly and mass generation process of protein folding in the Amduat. As Ra approaches the Earth cell doors, he encourages the divine soul to come into being for Kepra, or the deceased sun god's transformation. He moves through the fields of souls as if he were a particle being created in a Higgs field. Particle masses are generated by interactions within an elementary field called the Higgs field after British physicist Peter Higgs. This mass generating mechanism results in a self-sustaining cluster analogous to the Higgs particle itself. Hour 2 in SETI the first presents the same crew in the middle register, but with the enclosed ram-headed sun god minus his disc, suggesting that the phage lambda DNA is now within the bacterium. The fork scepter or staff in his left hand is a waving elongated snake, depicting a active replication fork, for the sun god has entered the whole cell. In the prow of the sunbark are 2 urae called Isis and Nephthys. They are traveling through the watery field of the Uranus. Before the sun god's bark are 4 boats. The first 3 boats have a Ukach on each, but the 4th boat of the rain god Nepa does not. Deities line both the upper and lower register as before, lamenting as the encapsulated sun god passes. The boat of the full moon. At the prow and stern of the first boat are bearded human heads pointing to phage, with the sun god now minus the disc on his horizontal horns, and the appearance of a large oval disc on the boat of the full moon. We might surmise that the lambda DNA circularized within the host cell, so it is not degraded but ready for replication. The plumes probably signifies Isis, one of the 2 Ma'at goddesses. The word Ma'at is written between the plume and disc, reinforcing truth, rightful order. The text above this boat states that the deceased is conveyed in the boats of the earth and utters his words, that is, DNA instructions. The second boat, the boat of the goddess Hathor. The second boat, its end showing bearded human heads with double plumes on each, carries 2 goddesses on each side of the large sistrum, symbol of the goddess Hathor, and a beetle named Napur in the prow. The double plumes on the bearded heads indicate Nephthys and Isis, the 2 plumes that ornamented the head of their father Ra. We can address the beetle as a transformation symbol, and the shaking of the sistrum is as a chemical reactive shaking up of the atoms for cell process. The oldest form of Hathor is that of a cow, suggesting milk or lactose. The name of the goddess is Het-Her, Hurt, meaning house above. The cosmic goddess Hathor was the principal female counterpart to Ra. Her headdress includes the disc between the horns and other forms of plumes, the uraeus and the sistrum. According to one myth, Hathor has the star Sathis, and she took up her place in the face of Horus or Ra as his right eye, that is, the sun. However, in another myth, she was associated with the moon. So Hathor represents a dual functionalism related to two eyes of the renewal of the divinity of humanity, as does Isis. To the left of the sistrum is the claws. Their boats send forth their words. On the right, over the double plume front, are the words. Osiris crieth to it. The reference to the words indicates DNA instructions. The boat of the lizard god. Pinakov provides a valuable footnote explaining that the white crown was the crown of the south in the upper Egypt, whereas the red crown was that of the north in the lower Egypt. The third boats bear the crowns of the south on the prow and the crown of the north stern, and its cargo is a lizard between the two scepters. Above the lizard looms the head of the Osiris, and the crown of the south springs from the lizard. Again, I say, the third boat bears the crown of the south on the prow and the crown of the north on the stern, and its cargo is a lizard between the two scepters. Above the lizard looms the head of the Osiris, and the crown of the south springs from the lizard. The northern crown represents the left eye of Horus, with the southern crown representing the right eye. So the lizard springing southern crown represents the renewal of the right eye of Horus. This reptilian form with the head of Osiris is suggestive of rebirth and regeneration of Osiris and the exorcism of the prophet from a dormant state. Put simply, Osiris is emerging from the primordial or earlier prophet state. In hour 7, we meet this image and its symbolism again. The boat of the lizard god bears the symbol of the whole eye of the Utex, and the eye and the sign for heaven on it, as does the boat of Hathor and the boat of the full moon. Our next boat does not bear this sign. The boat of grain god Neper. The fourth boat carries an armless deity between armless men, behind which are two cone-shaped objects that look like a plant or sheaf of wheat on each end, possibly a reference to the green god Osiris, and with the prow and the stern terminating in the Uri heads. The boat does not have the Ukats or the sign for heaven, leading one to believe that this boat is not going to be involved in the transformation. The Egyptian honored Osiris as an agricultural god, and according to the myth, Osiris was murdered by his brother Seth and then dismembered. This dismemberment was compared with the annual cutting and threshing of wheat. Osiris would start to rise again with the new crops. So this boat without the Ukats or sign of heaven suggests rebirth, new vegetation, or the birth of human form on earth. We might consider this boat as a template for human reproduction, or the self-lineage in the cell, which is inactive, for the deceased is dead to the material world and rising as the Hajj lineage. It is possible that the armlessness may indicate the dismemberment of Osiris, for the prophet or viral genome is the first prokaryotic cell is replicated and dismembered. By DNA replication, it is in its transition to the eukaryotic status. But it is more likely the armlessness suggests the non-formation of the limbs on Earth. Similarly, the lack of two arms may enforce the idea that two lambda arms are under crow protein does not result in the human creation. Yet we are traveling in the realm of the chromosomes, so the armlessness may indicate the absence of the expression of sonic hedgehog gene, which is important in limb formation and is found in different species such as the mouse, the fruit fly, and the human. Mutations in the human sonic hedgehog cause holoprosencephaly. Holoprosencephaly, a developmental defect of the forebrain and midface. When this gene is not expressed, a single central eye known as cyclopia develops. With normal development, this gene is responsible for the separation of the single eye field into the bilateral fields. In addition, the SHH gene of the sonic hedgehog gene controls the size and shape of brain structures. Other evidence suggests, as retreating pig in the judgment scene suggests, the retreating sonic hedgehog gene necessary for human development. So it is likely that the armlessness or non-formation of limbs on the Grains God's boat points to the inactivation of the sonic hedgehog gene and the sinking of the template for human reproduction. Peace, kings, peace, queens. I'm gonna pick up again on page 181 when we come back.